What is the mystery of West Pasture?
Will the Abbotts lose their family ranch?
Are Autumn and Amy really the same person?
Is Autumn going to succeed in her devious plan?
Saddle up with the Red and Red Real reviews as we break down season 2 of the time traveling Cowboys of Outer Range on Amazon Prime.
In her face, the mirror of your
I have 2.8% body fat. My body's like a microchip. A grain of sand could destroy it.
Any man who must say, I am the king, is no true king.
Someone will die.
Of fun.
And of murder.
So I told him to mark everything with the international symbol for gender. And,
Leslie, I typed your symptoms into the thing up here, and it says you could have network connectivity problems.
When you play the Game of Thrones, you win or you die.
My body's a microchip.
It's Halloween. That is really, really good timing.
Make believe I'm everywhere, giving in the light.
My brain is on fire. I'm dying.
I should have been more specific.
I think it happens over a long period of time, just like piece by piece, you know?
I once forgot to brush my teeth for 5 weeks.
There is no middle ground.
I am the one who knocks.
Oh my God. The microchip has been compromised.
I want you to stand out. I want all of you to be as different as you can possibly be.
Written on the pages is the answer to a never-ending story.
Welcome back. Episode 17 of Red and Red Real Reviews. Hey, we're almost legal.
A few more episodes before we get there.
Yeah. Well, we're almost adults. We're almost adults.
Yeah, I was gonna say legal to drink.
Yeah. Unless we're in Canada. So today we're gonna check out season 2 of Outer Range on Amazon Prime, and I'm a little miffed only because I remember, at least I think I remember, starting this a couple of years ago when season 1 came out, and for some reason it didn't catch me right away. So when I'm starting from scratch to catch up to start season 2, I'm like instantly kind of hooked, and the story's moving really well, and it's interesting content, especially coming off Yellowstone and waiting for that to come back. So there's a lot of parallels, which we'll get into in a minute. But going through season 1 again, that made me really excited for season 2, because it was kind of a lot of cliffhangers they left in season 1.
Yeah, there were some wow moments in season 1. Like I literally had my mouth hanging open. So I was really eager to see what was in store for season 2. And it was good that I think normally people had to wait 2 years for this new season to come out, but I didn't have to wait at all. I was actually putting it off because I was like saving it up for myself, because I was like, this is a treat. Like I'm so excited to watch the second season. So I actually waited a few days, even though I was dying to see what happened. So, but I actually, when you suggested covering it, or maybe we were looking at a list of what to cover, I was confusing it with, yes, I knew that there was some show with Josh Brolin in it that was kind of like Western themed, but I thought I was confusing it with Open Range, which is a movie from like 2003 or 2004 with like Robert Duvall, I think, or some older guys. So I was confusing it with that. And I was like, oh, this is just a TV show telling of that movie. But no, it was not at all what I thought it was. And when the whole kind of time travel fantasy aspect of it came out in the first season, I was like, whoa, I did not see that coming at all with this show.
Maybe that was my issue with watching it a couple of years ago and it not catching me. Maybe I was just click on the movie by accident.
Open Range. Open Range is not equal to Outer Range, just for anyone who's wondering.
And it's weird because that was probably more of a traditional kind of Western style drama. So this one having a little bit of a strange subtlety of time travel and science fiction. It's interesting how two things that don't necessarily go together work.
Right. Yeah, it was kind of like a Western with a twist. You know, I was talking to people about it and I was kind of like, you know what? If you miss Yellowstone, it's kind of like Yellowstone with a huge wrench thrown in it. That's just makes it go berserk, you know?
Yeah, Yellowstone meets a Three Body Problem.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of star power in this. And going back to Yellowstone, so that one, aside from Kevin Costner, a lot of the actors in that kind of got their fame from Yellowstone. Like even Cole Hauser to an extent. I think cinephiles know Cole Hauser, but he really wasn't elevated to superstar until post Rip.
Right.
Whereas this show, there's a lot of already established talent going into it. So obviously Josh Brolin plays Royal, and you know, I don't know about you, but you know, some people probably expecting him to do the Thanos snap. Um, and one of our previous shows we covered Reacher, which you reminded me of this off air. I didn't put two and two together recognizing him, but the one of the Tillerson brothers, Luke, is one of the detectives from Reacher. So
Right, that he was on Reacher's team. I can't remember what his name was.
I don't either, actually. He was the sleaze bag, but he's got the wholesome family life.
Right. A former sleaze bag.
Yes, a reformed
Yeah.
sleaze bag. Wayne Tillerson, the psycho that he is, a great job by Will Patton, who of course is also from Yellowstone, so Jamie's birth father, but I always think of him from Armageddon.
Oh, I forgot he was from Armageddon. Yeah, I instantly was like, I know this guy. And when I saw Yellowstone not too far back in his filmography, I was like, all right, that totally makes sense.
Yeah, but yeah, I always think of that movie with him. Give me more torque on the turbine, chick. Cecilia, I recognize just from her name seemed familiar. Maybe I'm just equating Lily Taylor to an old time actress.
It's probably just her face because I instantly recognized her. I mean, the thing is, you know, Josh Brolin, I don't know if everybody necessarily knows his name. Like they just might recognize him from being a working actor for decades and decades. And I think it's kind of the same thing with her. So the woman who played Cecilia that you mentioned, what I remember her from is that movie. I think it's called The Haunting. It's from like the year 2000 or maybe it's like 1999. It had Catherine Zeta-Jones and it was like all these people that were staying in like a house that was supposedly haunted. And this lady, this actress, I remember that was like the first movie I had ever seen her in. And she was so annoying. Like she was just kind of an over the top actor. So like not to spoil the movie, and it's kind of a shit movie, like I don't really recommend it, but they had these like terrible CGI ghosts of like little kids that were living in the house, and so she was like bonding with all the ghosts in the house, the little children, and it was just like so poorly done, but she was just so like, oh my little baby, like she was just so I couldn't take her expressions, I couldn't take her voice. And the good thing is that she totally redeemed herself for me as Cecilia. Like, yes, she was a little bit like headstrong, I guess would say, but her acting redeemed herself from that movie that I remember from 25 years ago or so. So
yeah, I was gonna say 25 years ago. I think you're safe from spoilers.
yeah, but I not like I would recommend that movie anyway because it's pretty awful.
Yeah, and so because I thought I recognized her, I'm like instantly scrolling through. I didn't see anything that I recognized, but at the same time, I also saw she was in the recent Apple show Manhunt about trying to find John Wilkes Booth after the Lincoln assassination. And I started watching a few episodes of that the other night.
Oh, that sounds like something I'd want to watch. I
She
should watch that.
she was married Todd Lincoln.
Oh, okay. Interesting. I might have to watch that.
Yeah, and speaking of characters from other shows we've covered, the younger Abbott brother Rhett is Lewis Pullman. Most recently, well, maybe I shouldn't say that, but recently from Lessons in Chemistry. And I was actually I kind of I mean I think as we'll get to it, I think a potential future season maybe sets up more of a role for him because I really like the Rhett character.
Yeah, at least we did see more of him in this than we saw of him in Lessons in Chemistry. I mean, he was in a few episodes and then he was gone.
Yes.
So That was kind of sad.
Talk about gasp moment.
Yeah.
And another, I don't necessarily know whether Billy was a comic relief, but we recognize him from another role where he's comic relief, playing David's boyfriend in Schitt's Creek. May I get a ew, David?
Ew, David. No, I need the T-Rex. Ew, David.
Yes.
And yeah, that's the actor's name is Noah Reed. So instantly in the first season, I was like, I know this guy. And then it threw me off a little bit because they like, I don't know if it's to make him look more like a Tillerson, to make him look more like the other actor who plays Luke. They gave him like the dyed blonde hair. Like he normally has brown hair. So they dyed him. They like frosted his tips basically for that.
Made him look like a member of NSYNC.
Yeah, like Lance, they did.
And that one, another one that I noticed that I know this guy's face. I've seen him a few times. The Deputy Matt. I thought there was going to be something else, or at least like a few movies in his filmography that I recognized. But the only one that I saw that I kind of knew that I've seen recently is he was one of the employees at Nike during the Air Jordan movie. He was the gentleman that designed the shoe itself.
Oh, okay. Yeah, he looked vaguely familiar to me, but I couldn't quite figure it out. Obviously the one that jumped out at me right away was like obviously Josh Brolin first, but then Tom Pelphrey. And I had to look up his name because I was like, it's Tom something. But what I know him as, he's known for being Kaylee Cuoco's baby daddy, but also also as far as film, he's from Ozark, Banshee, which is another great show that I think a lot of people don't even know about. And then just a bunch of stuff. He's been a working actor for quite a while, but it's just like you remember his face, you don't necessarily remember his name.
He was Perry, I assume.
Perry, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, and it's just funny to have a show that's kind of, I don't necessarily want to say the poor man's Yellowstone, but compared to Fame, the poor man's Yellowstone, and all this star power flew into it. So I guess Amazon's got some bucks to throw around.
Oh, they definitely do. They paid $1 billion or something for that Lord of the Rings prequel or whatever it was. So of course they've got money to throw around.
And it didn't feel like it was too many cooks in the kitchen. Like all the acting in the show was very well done. It didn't feel like it was over star power overload.
Very well done. Because I mean, I learned from working at a video store and seeing all these movies where there was 10 actors' names on the cover, like doesn't always make a great movie or a great show.
Yeah.
Not always.
So speaking of Yellowstone, obviously fans are jonesing for that to come back and maybe clinging to this mysterious cowboy Western culture show. They must have been sleeping on season 1 because I think that kind of flew under the radar a little bit. But season 2, when we were trying to decide what to talk about next, we noticed this was consistently hanging around the top 5. So maybe there was definitely a longing for missing out on Yellowstone with the popularity of the second season.
Oh yeah, I definitely think so. I think more people were finding out about it, that the second season was coming out. They're like, oh, what is this? What is this Western show? It kind of, like you said, it kind of filled the void of what Yellowstone was. There are a lot of parallels, I thought. And that's why, if anyone asked me, I would say it's Yellowstone gone wacky. Like all the main kind of principles are there. It's, a couple of the same actors. The drama's there. There's the fighting over land. There's the ties to like nature and animals and the symbolism of animals and what that means to people. And so there's all the same kind of concepts in it, and 2 of the same actors, at least 2, if not more.
Yeah. And one thing I thought is, although you don't quite have this cinematic agitation between the white characters, the Native American characters, like you did with with John Dutton and
the tribe
Rainwater,
or
Tom Rainwater, Tom
Rainwater, yeah.
Thank you. Oof. Oh man, it's been a while since I saw Yellowstone.
I know, it's
I'm
been a few
ashamed of
years.
myself. But so there really was no kind of animosity type of relationship between those two historically feuding archetypes, but other than so you do have Sheriff Joy's time travel story where she and Royal kind of bond over shared experiences, with her going back in time, him being from the past, and then of course them encountering each other way back in 1886.
What I saw with the Sheriff Joy being Native American, the parallel that I saw with Yellowstone there was the fact that they were kind of showing some of the struggles of Native Americans, because there were certain times where she was trying to get something done, or she wanted to expose the Abbotts, and she wanted to do certain things. And I don't know if it was like Matt, who was her kind of right-hand man, or if it was somebody else in the town, but they were kind of like, Joy, like, or I don't know if it was her wife that was kind of in her ear saying it, but was like, you got to tread carefully because the elections are coming up. And, if you want to be sheriff, like, you're a Native American and you're a woman and all this stuff. And I was kind of drawing it a parallel between that and what was Casey, is that the son's name in Yellowstone? Casey's
and
wife.
Monica.
Casey and Monica. And there were a lot of parallels with Monica having a hard time, her family having a hard time living on the reservation. And there was a little bit of that like res life kind of thing, especially towards, the end of when Royal comes to pick her up at the hospital, Sheriff Joy, they actually go to the reservation because she knows that the cops in their district or in their area can't touch the reservation. Like it's out of their jurisdiction. So you get that kind of sense that like, okay, well, reservation life is really separate from like everywhere else. Like it's like their own world there. So you do kind of see the parallels of how hard life is for Native Americans, or how different it is, the things that we take for granted just being normal people or what have you.
And they did, although they didn't say it directly, but to that point, to your point about, the elections trying to get sheriff, there could have been something like, okay, take me to the hospital on the res, so this doesn't make frontline headlines and hurt my chances to get full-time sheriff.
Right. It was just like it was kind of like life or death matters, but she was all worried about the election.
Yeah.
And how that would look and how it would look if she did certain things.
Yeah. And as far as the warring family arc, obviously in Yellowstone, it's not necessarily a family versus family, but it's all these I don't want to say organizational, because they're all government affiliations, basically trying to get the land, trying to get John
right.
Dutton's
It's like
land.
I don't want to say land squabbles, but like the main issue is the land. Oh, well, this is my land, and in Outer Range, it's a fight between neighbors, and their families have been established in that area for a long time. So they're not fighting to keep their ranch out of the hands of like being bought up by big corporations to build hotels like it is in, is it a hotel or a casino for Yellowstone? Airport,
all of the above.
Yeah, I think they were going to build housing or a hotel or something. So yeah, it's not the same fight, but it is just the fact that there is endless struggle over this land, and no, this land is mine. No, it's not yours, it's mine. This whole like pull and tug over that.
Yeah, and the like you said, Yellowstone, a lot of the motivation is monetary goals. But in this, the motivation is Abbott's like, this is my family land, or as you find out, his wife's family's land, really.
Yeah.
So this is ours. So that's kind of a John Dutton kind of motivation. We're not giving up just because it's ours. And then Tillerson's not necessarily wants it for monetary gain, but with some fascination or obsession with power over
Mhm.
whatever this time holds.
Control, being
Yeah.
able to control, what's on that land, and that's the portal or whatever you want to call it, the hole.
Yeah. But I don't know, maybe with that, we'll get to the scientist angle later, but maybe that's kind of a little bit bleeding over from Yellowstone, something that's actual organization wanting it as
Right.
well. So now you got another party that could
Mm-hmm.
play into a role in the future. So of course, now this isn't our first rodeo with time travel or the space-time continuum. Thank you, bodies. Thank you, three body problem. But like I kind of hinted at it before, it was certainly a square peg in a round hole to work that into a Western culture series. Did it flow well to you? Do you think it made sense, or was it a little far-fetched?
I mean, when you introduce kind of a alternative, or I don't know if you want to call it sci-fi. I mean, we experienced that with Sugar a little bit. You're kind of
Yes,
like,
that's
oh,
right.
this is where it's going.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I actually, when I was like, oh, damn. Like, I wasn't like rolling my eyes like, oh, geez, we're taking it here. I
Mhm.
actually, I think it was done in a way where it wasn't corny. It was actually somewhat plausible to me. Now hear me out. I mean, I'm not,
And it didn't
I
feel
swear I'm
like,
not crazy.
and it
Yeah.
didn't feel like M. Night Shyamalan's Signs.
Right. It didn't feel crazy because the way I was thinking about it, if there were a way to time travel, it probably would be something like this. It's not like somebody invents a time machine where you can punch in the exact date that you want to go to. Oh, I want to go back to November 2nd, 1972. Like, that's not how time travel works. I don't think it's that controllable.
Mhm.
So it would probably be random where, yes, you'd find this portal where like you don't know where it's going to take you, if it's going to take you to the future or the past. So this is actually something I've kind of thought about quite a bit here and there, because there has been cases of, online where there's been like an old photo or old video footage where, or not old video footage, but say it's an old photo, right? And there's a person in it who has something that wasn't around at that time.
Yeah.
Or it's a modern video where there's somebody who looks like they were from a different time in the past. Like, there have been little situations like, and they don't really make headlines, but they're maybe considered conspiracy theories, but I think that there have been little cases in history, even in the recent past few years, where people are like, wait, why does that person look like they don't belong?
Mhm.
Just kind of drawing attention. Or I swear that there was some photo that I read about where there was like an old photo in, say, the 18 or 1900 early 1900s, where somebody had what looked like a cell phone or something like that,
Mm.
some sort of piece of technology that was not around. So people are kind of like, wait, am I seeing things, or is there really a person with this technology? And then, there's all these accounts of, it's not just something you see in a movie. Like, it's said that there are people that have traveled through the past, or and like are, from the future or things like that. So I don't know.
They chalk it up to some Looney Tune holding a cinder block up to their head.
Yeah. Like a Zach Morris phone.
Yes. That's worse cinder blocks, actually.
Right.
But like you said, like, and could it plausible being just two random portals in whatever years, and you just land wherever it goes. There's no predestined destination, for lack of a better word, of or reason why that's where you wound up. And maybe it's random, maybe it's the higher power. Like, I always think of the cartoon Gargoyles, where they leave Avalon. It's like, Goliath, Avalon doesn't send you where you want to be. Avalon sends you where you need to go. So
No, I mean that's what it is. And like the fact that when people fall into the hole, they're falling through time. So it's kind
mhm.
of like wherever they land, that's where they land, that's what time they land in, like physically wherever they land.
In case people thought that time travel was this luxurious first class ticket. No, you probably just fall like a bug or an egg falling off the counter and it hurts
Yeah,
wherever you
I
may
mean,
land.
usually whenever they wake up, they're kind of like, like they're all kind of banged up.
Yeah. So tying this into the story itself, you have Royal with his deep internal conflict of keeping his truth a secret for so long for his family in season 1, and then in season 2, he starts to open up more and he realizes that this thing is causing chaos and he needs to share it with everybody because it's like a domino effect with just bad things continuing to happen.
Right. So I think in the second season, this is when he comes clean to his wife and he comes clean to Rhett, correct? Because
Yeah.
Perry already knows in the first season. So yeah, that was crazy to me. Even the moment where Royal reveals to, I think, Perry, and then he reveals to Cecilia in the second season that he is from a different time.
And the sad part, when he comes clean to Cecilia, at that point in the story, the hole is closed. So
Yeah,
he's like, here, let me show you this. And it's just the pasture. And I'm like, well, she's like, you're nuts.
I know. It makes him look real bad, right?
Yeah. And then as far as Sheriff Joy, which I noticed, maybe I was looking away for a second, but I noticed Sheriff Joy, her initial time travel, I think this is while the hole is closed up, and she gets there not from the West Pasture, but from this Tarlin guy's ranch. And I
Right,
don't
right.
remember her going into a hole. She just kind of showed up on his ranch and then she was back in time. So I don't know if they wanted the audience to assume that there was a portal there or if it was another methodology to jumping back.
Yeah, I'm not really sure because that wasn't really clear. But yeah, wasn't it that guy? It's kind of like the weird guy in town who's like, "Oh, I've seen some crazy things," and she's like, "Sure, you have, sir." Like,
Yes.
so then she actually went there and she did see it for herself. But I don't really know if we see necessarily the moment she kind of enters the different time, right?
Yeah, we have no idea what's actually on Harlan's ranch.
She's just automatically kind of there.
Yeah, and um that funny scene where he's trying to tell her about it. She's like, just let me have breakfast with my family, please.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And then of course, now obviously this sets up more for the future that may be an issue, may not be, but Perry willfully dives through it to try and escape his current troubles with the Trevor Tillerson homicide. And then it kind of sets up an interesting effect where he's doing things in the past that could have the butterfly effect, and you really don't see anything of a butterfly effect until he actually goes back. So I don't necessarily know if maybe this is like the time travel in this show is disproving the butterfly effect theory.
I don't know. I feel like if there, see, what I think is that there are mostly likely going to be consequences for this. It's just we don't really know what they are yet.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that there will be potentially bad things that will happen, but it won't be obviously until the third season that we see this. But also, one thing I was considering is that shouldn't there be bad things happening because there are technically two Amy's living? Like, can you have two people of the same person living on this at the same time?
I feel like when it's done as the way they're telling this story, it's plausible because it's not like it's a clone of Amy. Like it's Amy plus 12 years or whatever, however much older Autumn is.
Right. Or the
12,
fact
15
like
years.
when Perry went back, and I think that in by changing the past in trying to do a better thing than what was done originally, he's still going to cause problems. Like, even though he righted a wrong, a wrong is going to show up someplace, and like a place he didn't expect, but it's going to be weird.
Yeah, and then of course the other character that has an obsession with the whole, besides Wayne Tillerson, but he hasn't actually gone through it, is Autumn, and she's obsessed with this thing from the jump, from
Yeah.
season one all the way through now. And then she finally gets her way, although in a bit of an accidental way, goes through the hole, and then it sets up a potential closure of sorts to try and figure out, okay, how did Amy become Autumn? And there's this scene at the end where you kind of get the feeling like maybe she fell and she has amnesia, and she's like, I think my name's Autumn.
Yeah, because she had been in the car with Autumn and Luke, and then she was pushed into the hole. So like the Autumn is the last thing that she remembers. And so yeah, when they were talking about, oh well, when when you said that you don't remember anything past before the age of 9 or 10 or whatever it was, they were like, oh wait, Amy is almost that
Almost
age,
9,
like not
yeah.
quite. So I think like literally the moment that she fell in the hole, that's when she became Autumn, because that was the only thing she remembered from a few minutes before. So then those people found her, and that's all that she remembered, and so she became Autumn from that point on.
Which makes sense because she was a bit traumatized being taken from that commune that she and Rebecca were hanging out at. And Autumn sells her on, well, Autumn sells Rebecca on taking her back to the Abbotts, and Autumn because it goes along with it. But then obviously Autumn and Luke aren't exactly the most mentally stable people
No,
to
I mean,
be in a car with.
she really, I mean, don't get me wrong, Rebecca is kind of the worst kind of douchebag, because what mother like abandons their child? And but Autumn really twisted her arm to she manipulated her very badly to get her to go.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, I mean, it took a lot for her to do that, but yeah, she cray cray.
Okay. All right, let's not put on our tinfoil hat, but put on our film student session hat. And so season one to me felt like a little bit more of an edge of your seat kind of thriller. There were a lot of cliffhangers. There was a lot of mystery, intrigue. Season two, now this feels backwards from the way most shows do it. There's a lot of story building in the early part of season two before they started to build up to the eventual climax.
Right.
Maybe to like the last 2.5 episodes. But due to this, there were a lot of character arcs aligning in season two that did not necessarily align in season one. You really just had Royal and Autumn, at which at the time was more of a hush hush thing about the time hole. You have building the Abbott Tillerson rivalry. But what were your kind of, with more with all that kind of intrigue established, what were your kind of memorable relationships and character arcs, interpersonal arcs, I should say, in season two?
I really liked how the first season was really all about the sheriff trying to take down the Abbotts. She's like, they've killed this man, they've done these things, they've covered it up, like, I'm gonna take them down.
Yes.
But then literally season two, it suddenly there was a common interest with Royal that she really couldn't go to anyone else about. When she went back in time and figured out that he knew about it too. I thought it was funny. I didn't write it down, but the moment in the hospital where she's like, I just told you that I was in a different time for 4 years and you didn't even blink. Like, you didn't even react at all. Like, this is all just business as usual for you. And that was interesting because, season 1, she was trying to take him down. And then in the second season, she found that he was the only person that she could go to. There's that one part where I don't know if he's looking for Perry or he's trying to figure things out. He's looking for Rebecca, and she calls him and she's like, can I talk to you? And he's kind of like, oh, not right now. Or like, when I get back. And she, like, you can hear, she's almost crying. Like, they show her and she's almost crying because she's just so messed up over this. And he's the only one that she can talk to about it. So
Yeah, and it's funny to realize that through Sheriff Joy's time travel that was the catalyst that pushed Roy into time travel. Royal.
yeah.
Like the standoff with Royal's dirtbag father. So like you're right, they come to an understanding and a kinship of this experience, but her going back was ultimately the reason why he went forward.
Yeah. And they're connected because, I mean, was it just that he didn't remember that situation from when he was younger? Like, was he misremembering it, or did she change the past?
That could have, you may have a point. I think you might have a point there with an unspoken butterfly effect. It wasn't so obvious that it jumped off the pages watching the show, but in theory, it could have been like he remembered as a hunting accident. It could have been a situation where at one point it was a hunting accident, and that's why he killed his father. But because of her, I don't want to say her stirring up trouble, but her causing some agitation between the Native American settlement and the homesteaders, that Royal and his father were thrust into the middle of it, and that kind of had the butterfly effect kicking around.
Right, because the fact that I think she tells him, she says, yeah, well, I was the one who kind of intercepted with your dad. And he's like, wait, no, that was a hunting accident. And she's like, no, like, I was almost questioning whether she created that situation, whether she rewrote the past, or whether he was just choosing not to remember it that way. It was hard to tell.
Yeah, and I look forward to a season 3 putting some clarity to whether these are true butterfly effects or it's just, trauma and you don't remember.
You're right. Is it just putting it out of your mind and totally retelling that narrative in a different way? Or is it the fact that people were in certain times they weren't really supposed to be in, and they just kind of like redid things or made things happen in a different way?
Yeah, and like you said, it could have been intentional because we know Royal buried it deep and down. We know Royal was keeping his past hidden, keeping the time hole hidden. So it could have been a situation where he was suppressing it so much it just gets lost in the ether.
Right. And he was pretty little, and just the fact that he's came to live with the Abbotts like a long time ago, like most of his life in general. So maybe he's just not remembering it a certain way.
Yeah.
Who knows?
Another one, of course, which really got more time spent on it in season 1 is Autumn and Royal. They kind of tolerate each other in season 1. They don't really at times they don't really like each other. He's very adamant about her staying away from the family, not talking to them about the time hole, whatever the case may be. And then an allyship starts to grow towards the end of season 1 into season 2 once it dawns on him that maybe she's Amy because of the scar on her head. And then, of course, throughout the season, then, of course, you wind up with everyone falling in the hole, and now they're adversaries again. So that's a very, I don't necessarily want to say roller coaster, but definitely somewhat of an up and down relationship between those two pivotal characters.
No, I would say it's definitely a roller coaster. It's a weird struggle because he's he realizes that it's his beloved, this is his only granddaughter, by the way, like this is the only granddaughter he has. So at the same time, he's trying to stop her from doing these horrible things, and he's against her in a lot of ways, but like when it gets down to it, he still remembers that this is his granddaughter that he loves, that he helped raise, that lived in his house. So it's just this weird endless struggle that just goes back and forth. So another thing is the fact that, you know, in the beginning of season 2, Cece is really like doesn't want anything to do with Autumn, and then she kind of starts to love her too and see her as her granddaughter. So yeah, it's just like a difficult thing because they don't know how to feel about it, because it's just weird to wrap your mind around.
Is there almost maybe, because you could say we've seen that before with Cecilia, is there maybe like a cat fight kind of thing? Because we saw her not wanting to accept Rebecca. We saw her, although we didn't really see it, but it was implied towards the end where she had a situation with Maria, Rhett's girlfriend. So like maybe there's a matriarch female territorialism thing going on with Cecilia and the other lead female characters.
I think it's just that Cecilia is just a very like stubborn, headstrong, strong woman. So she kind of rubs other women the wrong way, right? Because she just has this appearance that like I'm the alpha. So so I think she kind of intimidates, you know, Rhett's girlfriend, and there's just a butting of heads with a lot of females with her.
Well, technically it is her family's land, so I guess there's some grounds for her to be headstrong.
Oh yeah, she's definitely like gung-ho about protecting her family's land.
Yeah, and one that kind of was different from season 1 to season 2 is Autumn. She was very manipulative of Billy, getting Billy to kind of do her bidding in season 1. And then with him being more invalid in season 2, she kind of turns her attention to repeating the same behavior with Luke.
Right, which is kind of just, I mean, it's shitty. It's going against like all girl code. Like you're in love, like you're basically acting like you're in love with this one brother, like you're probably sleeping with this one brother, and then you just go to the next. Like, and there's actually, I don't know if it's before or after Luke accidentally kills Billy, but there's a line where she says something to Luke where I think he kind of acknowledges the fact that she used to be around Billy a lot, and she kind of says like, oh well, sometimes you kind of need people to help you to get where you're going to, and then after they've kind of served their purpose, like it's whatever, like basically paraphrasing what she said. But so she just kind of treats Billy the fact that like, oh yeah, he was all about me and stuff and he helped me out, sure, but like I don't need him anymore.
Sorry, Billy, old news.
Yeah, I feel bad for him just because there's like, you could tell he was just like enamored by her. And in the first season, like that scene in the bank was just like chef's kiss. Like that was fantastic. I was just dying, like with no less, you know, Save the Best for Last by Vanessa Williams. Williams? The singer? Yeah. Is that her name? The way he's sang that song, and that was just fantastic.
That's and lost my train of thought, but you had one more relationship to touch on.
Oh, so another one that was kind of interesting to me was, since Perry was in the past and he was kind of befriending like young Royal, that was really interesting because they had a conversation too where he says to young Royal that, yeah, like my dad and I are not really that close now. And so it's weird that he's in the past, he's closer with his father in a younger form than he was basically his whole life, or he is currently. So it took him traveling through time to the past to actually bond with his father and kind of understand his father. It's not really like just I think what bonded them in the first season was just keeping all the secrets under wraps and intact.
And keeping Perry out of trouble after the Trevor Tillman situation.
Right, just like covering it up and working so hard to cover it up, like, and obviously that's something you do for family, not that I would know that. Not that I would know that. I just want to clarify. But if you were in that situation, you would probably help however you can, but that's the only thing that's kind of bonding them. And to be able to, like, I thought the moment was great when you found out that Cece and Wayne Tillerson used to date. You're like, hold the phone, what? Like,
so maybe this is about more than just land.
That was, yeah. And that, then Wayne was like, oh, I'll give you the money, but I want the apology. And he basically said, like, it's for taking you, but he cheated on her, so what does he care? But anyway.
Yeah. So the prize flower, and the Perry going back in time, that was almost him trying to like be aware of the butterfly effect and cover his bases, because him talking to young Royal, like, he knows that Royal buried this thing and didn't tell anybody. So that was almost like the one situation where you thought would not have an effect on the future, because Royal kept it all secret anyway.
Right.
So as we have gone to typically do on our show, we always touch on some quotes that maybe we found funny, maybe we found profound. So one of them I thought was, I don't know if you call it the wow or drop the jaw moment, but when Royal tells Autumn that, I think you're Amy because of the scar, after he was trying to race down her and Billy and kind of kill them because they're wrecking up his whole family.
Yeah.
She says, like, you did save me though, all because of this scar.
Yeah, that I remember that when she said that stuck with me. That was a memorable quote when she said that, and then I think in the next breath she's like, wait, but you left Billy there, like, is he dead?
Yeah.
Like, you saved me because you saw that I may have had the same scar that your granddaughter had, but like, you just left a guy dead there potentially.
Abbott's, Tillersons, they don't play well in the sandbox,
No.
Two that were kind of sets up at a very adversarial relationships. Cecilia obviously has a thing with Lewis Mays because of his affair with Rebecca.
Mm-hmm.
And she said, she breaks up his sweat. She's like, oh, I bet your ancestors are so proud. And he just fires right back at her. You were always a sanctimonious harpy. And then a dig from Royal to Wayne Tillerson, after the judge, surprisingly, in my opinion, when he says, like, we're gonna put the land up as, I guess, collateral, for lack of a better word, for Perry's bail. And Royal looks at Wayne Tillerson, he goes, you know what the worst thing is to happen to your boys? They were born to you. And then he walks off.
Oh yeah, that was a sick burn. I remember that.
Speaking of sick burns, you do have another one that can fall into this.
Oh yeah, we both wrote this one down because this one was like kind of badass of Cece. So, she's gone to the bank to try to reason with them to give them a loan, right? She wants to get a loan for the house. So she basically, the lady at the bank, she's known for years. She's like, oh yeah, like, my father and your father were friends going way back, or they were really close, and I know you and I know your family, you know mine. And so she goes through this whole thing, and then when the lady is not receptive, it was just like, oh, like, my hands are tied, I can't do anything, sorry. So then she kind of, her eye goes to the fly that's in this lady's office, like on her sandwich or on a piece of food or something, right? And the lady just kind of keeps chewing it. And so Cece says, like, she says, flies are attracted to shit. I forget what the lady's name was, it was Jane or something like that. Well, flies are attracted to shit, Jane, basically saying like, you are shit. And
Yeah.
I don't like, you are nothing and a nobody. Like, really deep dig right there.
Yeah. Another one back to 1886. There are a lot of digs actually in this show. There are a lot of
Oh yeah, a lot
characters
of
taking shots at each other.
thick burns.
When Sheriff Joy, she's on the ground, she's almost defeated. Levi's about to, actually he's not about to blow her away. He wants Royal to do it. And she goes like, Sumner, know this, the day you die, your family will rejoice because they'll finally be free of you. So it's like, even though she is not from this time, she knows enough of whether it's Royal's backstory or hearing stories of this man from the Shoshone tribe. She knows this guy's a dirtbag, and she knows he doesn't treat his family right. So she's just kind of like, I may die right here, but no, you're gonna die some way, and it'll be the best thing that ever happened to your family.
Yeah, that was pretty badass of her, especially because he was they definitely alluded to the fact that there was some domestic abuse, right?
Yeah. Oh, he hits when she comes out with the shot. His wife comes out with the shotgun before they go off to find Sheriff Joy, and she's like she's coming out of the shotgun. She's ready to blow something away. And he's like, no. He like smacks her down. I'm like, ooh.
Yeah, he was a bad guy, and it was different to see it from that view because you just get the impression that Royal shot him by accident, and it was just like the regret of his life.
Yeah.
So the fact that he was kind of a garbage person, and that Sheriff Joy was kind of sticking it to him, then that kind of made it a little more satisfying.
Yeah. Well, there were some profound ones too. I think when they're in the hospital, Royal says to Sheriff Joy, as far as finding someone to confide this in, that's because he's lied about it for so many years. He says the first lie is the hardest, and the rest just get easier after that. Then he kind of takes a pause, or he goes off on a tangent for a second. Then he goes, and now my family is broken. So he's like trying to plead to her, do not bury this knowledge of this time travel. Find someone to confide in about something because it will just eat you alive forever.
Right. I think that's when he's asking her, he asks her, like, did you talk to your Martha, or did you talk to your wife about this? And she's just like, well, I kind of tried, or I did a little bit, but she just doesn't get it. And he's like adamant about it. Like, no, you really need to just get through it, and you need to do it.
Yeah, and then you had one, which of course we both had it, but it was a very poignant quote to set up season 3.
Yeah, and that was it a flash forward of sorts?
Yeah.
Yeah, like it was a vision kind of, and it was Autumn saying, this is just the beginning, and you're just kind of like, okay, creepy.
Yeah, and I think you're right. I think it was a vision or hallucination because Royal did not fall in the hole.
Right.
It was just Autumn and Amy that fell in the hole.
It was like those it was kind of not unlike the visions that the Tillersons would have when they ate the dirt, or we talked about this a little bit. Yeah, when they eat the dirt and they kind of can see the future, or can see things where where Autumn saw Luke being a right-hand man, or like a main follower of hers, like just kind of worshiping, for lack of a better term, worshiping the ground that she walked on, and really propelling her forward as like this cult leader kind of.
Yeah, and then just real quick to touch on with the Tillersons, you touch on a little bit as far as the musical number in the bank. There are a couple of cheesy moments. They seemed very cheesy. They didn't necessarily seem to ruin the show, but when Wayne gives Billy the mineral from the hole, and he kind of like rises up like an angel, and it was like, is he gonna die right now? What's going on? And then after Billy does die, of course, Wayne goes and he lights the wall of owls on fire,
Mhm.
which Billy loved, and he named one after Luke. Um, and that also had like a second symbolism to it because Luke was always the black sheep and wanted the family name, wanted the ranch, wanted the land, and he wasn't gonna get any of it. So Wayne Tillerson just like, I'm gonna burn this whole thing to the ground. So no, did those didn't have a negative effect on the story to you? Obviously, you love
Um,
the cheesy Billy stuff, but
no, I mean, it wasn't like it came out of left field. Like, even in the first season, that's why like the thing in the bank was so hilarious in the first season. But I mean, so Noah Reed, the actor who plays Billy, obviously he sang in Schitt's Creek when he was David's husband. So I think it was on brand for Wayne and for Billy to really be bonded through music. They were always listening to something, Billy was also always singing along to something, or that was pretty on brand for him. So the fact that that whole little singing thing and the rise to the heavens where he was like levitating or whatever,
yes.
obviously it was like foreshadowing too for him kind of accidentally dying by his brother's hand. So but that I didn't think it was ridiculous, like where I was just like, I can't believe they put this in here. Like,
Yeah.
it's not like, when they used to have like a musical episode of Riverdale and you're just like, I'm fast forwarding through this shit, like this is so annoying. Like,
Yep.
this is not a musical normally, so why are they doing this? Like, I didn't get that feeling about it at all.
Skip intro, you needed to skip episode.
Yeah.
Um,
Exactly.
so to wrap up, we were kind of hoping for a lot to be resolved in season two. Some things were still left a little open. So what are you looking forward most of season three as far as what was left? What was left very open-ended?
um I mean, I'm interested to see if Perry kind of altering history will impact him in a bad way, and I'm sure that'll be revealed. The way I think about it, I think that he may have screwed up something else in trying to right a wrong. Like, there does seem to be a balance to time, so I think he might have kind of tore it askew with doing that. And then the other thing I'm interested in is, I mean, I feel like most of the things I'm looking forward to have to do with time, because it's a really confusing thing to wrap your mind around. Because when Amy goes through the hole at the end, that's the point where Autumn is born, because she doesn't remember anything from her
Yeah.
childhood. So but it's confusing because like younger Amy, the current Amy, like wouldn't that be current time for her? So like I'm interested in like they showed her like talking to that couple when she goes through the hole or whatever, so like we don't really know what time it is yet. But I'm just confused as to what timeline that puts like younger Amy on. Like, at what point does the time become like present day? Like, I'm just kind of confused about how all of that works.
Yeah, I can't totally math the math as far
I
as whether
know.
she's landing before Amy's current age or a little after or about the same time. But yeah, I'm curious because I'm really convinced that when she landed, she got amnesia. And
Yes.
she only remembered the name Autumn because she was just going through trauma from
Right.
Autumn and Luke. So to find out like how the transition from the aim, well, I don't want to say transition, but the kind of identity change from Amy to Autumn kind of occurred. I'm kind of curious to see how the holes get filled in there. With the Perry point, I'm curious because he went back, thought he may have been pre-Trevor Tillerson homicide, and went out to try and stop the fight, and his actions wound up in resulting in his death, not
Right.
Trevor Tillerson. So now I'm almost wondering if he's gonna have to stay in that time, 3 months before
Right.
whenever that happened, and just relive that part of his life because obviously he doesn't want his family to think he's dead, as his actions resulted in his own death. Like, he's
Right.
just gonna have to live in that time and live through it.
Yeah, it complicates things, doesn't it? So yeah, when that happened, I was like, oh man, this just throws a wrench in everything, you know, trying to do something good and then this happens. So I mean, it was a little bit I don't know if you got the sense, but it was a little bit too easy for me. Like, I'm like, okay, so he like barely falls and cracks his head open and dies. Like, what?
Well,
And even
it hit the
even
side
the
of the
Billy
sidewalk, hit the edge of
the
the
Billy
asphalt.
thing too, I'm just like, that's all it takes. Like, I don't know. I feel like shows and TV and entertainment is like, it's either dramatic one way or the other. It's like nothing of hardly any impact ends up killing someone, or it's like you like snap someone's neck and or like they fall down 12 stories and they're not dead. It's like, it just doesn't always make sense, like, to me, the level of impact that actually kills someone.
Well, that's why they tell us to wear a helmet riding a bike or a motorcycle, because they're not very soft up here, or they're not very hard up here. We're only
Yeah.
hard-headed beings figuratively.
Yeah, so I was a little bit shocked when Perry, or past Perry, died in that incident. Like, it was just kind of shocking.
The only other one for me is interesting to see how Rhett's transactional relationship with that scientist is going to play out, because it kind of feels like, going back to Yellowstone, when Jamie's got the best intention to save the ranch, and it means he's signing the land over to the government, to the conservation, whatever, and obviously that throws off his whole good relationship with John and Beth. And so, like, that kind of feels like that. So I'm interested to see if they take that in the same direction, or if his actions are gonna be something accepted by Royal.
Yeah, I don't know if he's going to be, I feel like he's going to be too big for his britches with that one. Like, it's going to come back to bite him in the ass. You know, I don't really know how, but he was kind of acting a little tough with that, wasn't he?
Yeah. Oh yeah, no, he was definitely kind of pumping his chest, brass ballsing it a little bit.
Yeah, so that might come back to haunt him.
Yeah. Well, we'll find out. We'll see if season 3 we get the rest of these loopholes wrapped up. If you enjoy listening to our show, very much appreciate it. Give us a 5-star rating on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Help the algorithm juice itself a little bit, and follow along with us on Instagram and TikTok. My podcast cohort here is Binge the Ginge, with dots between the words on Instagram and all one word on TikTok. And yours truly, Nutmeg 2 Palmetto, that is the number 2. Give us both follows. Stay tuned to the show. Video-wise, YouTube and Rumble. Audio-wise, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Google Podcasts, and Apple Podcasts. And for episode 18, we'll finally be adults. Get our knife skills out and step into the heat of the kitchen, because we are going to rapid fire review the much anticipated season 3 of FX's The Bear on Hulu. It all drops in one shot, and get your binge on as we get our binge on. Until that very next real review, Red and Red, signing out.
Less than an hour. Aircraft from here will join others from around the world. And you will be launching the largest aerial battle in the history of mankind.
Hey guys, you ready to let the dogs out?
What?
Do what?
I'd like to be pimps from Oakland or cowboys from Arizona, but it's not Halloween.
Let the dogs out, you know, like, who let the dogs out? Who brought this guy along?
Slow ahead. I can go slow ahead. Come on down and chump some of this shit.
Grow up, Peter Pan. Count Chocula.
X never, ever marks the spot.
One more thing. Do me a favor. Don't go chasing waterfalls.
You did it. You crazy son of a bitch, you did.
Mankind, that word should have new meaning for all of us today. We can't be consumed by our petty differences anymore.
You're gonna need a bigger boat.
No. Try not. Do. Or do not.
There is no try.
All right. Then you do us proud. Because I don't want no scrubs.
Don't act so surprised, Your Highness. You weren't on any mercy mission.
Not from tyranny, oppression, or persecution, but from annihilation. We're fighting for our right to live.
Snakes. Why did it have to be snakes?
I'll take care, all right? None but love for you. None but love for you.
10. X marks the spot.
Have any clue what's about to happen to him?
Oh, no chance in hell. Good night.
Blow up! Peace!
Smile, you son of a...
Toodaloo, motherfucker.
Hey, ain't too proud to beg.
Come on.
What?
It's not funny anymore.
I don't know what you're talking about. I'm not trying to be
references.
Still, nothing. I swear to you.
But as the day when the world declared in one voice, we will not go quietly into the night, we will not vanish without a fight, we're going to live on. We're going to survive. Today, we celebrate our Independence Day.